Hey there, Parker Reed here, and welcome to PR Media, your home for all things physical media through my eyes. And today is a video that is at least a month or two too late, but it's here right now. It's the top 10 movies of 2022, according to me. And I know that you're probably asking, where has this list been? And I'm going to tell you that I made a real commitment to watching all the movies I wanted to from last year before making this list. All too often, I've made lists at the end of the year after not seeing a couple movies, and then those couple films end up being some of my favorite of the past year. So I wanted to eliminate that chance, and I'm glad I did because the last film I did watch ended up being in my top 5 of the year. And I think I'm really proud of this. It wasn't the strongest year ever for my movie watching tendencies, but I think it was a solid one. There was some really good surprises, and I'm excited to share my top 10 with you right now, starting with some honorable mentions. I have 5 honorable mentions here for you. I'm starting off with the Amazon original Hellraiser. I wasn't the hugest fan of the originals, but I enjoyed this movie. It was brutal, it was dark, and while the story didn't totally work for me, I understood what they were going for, and I'm looking forward to more releases. Next, we have Babylon, and I'm super disappointed in this title because Damien Chazelle directed Whiplash and La La Land and First Man. He's one of my favorite working directors today, but unfortunately this movie just felt way too long, felt disjointed, the message wasn't always there, and there's just a lot of head-scratcher moments. There's a 2-hour version of this movie somewhere that is absolutely fantastic and I want to watch over and over again, but what we're left with is kind of a bloated, messy film that I did like at times, but I hated at others. My next honorable mention is Downton Abbey: A New Era, and while I enjoyed this movie and it did pull at the heartstrings, prior to seeing the 2 films, I have only seen 1 episode of the television show, so I know how everything ends, and I know that it ends in a really good way, but it kind of ruined that for me, and I didn't fully get the impact that I would have if I was a huge fan of the series and then seeing these movies years later. So I'm currently watching through the series with my partner, and we're all through 1 season already, and I really enjoy the show. And when we rewatch these movies, I'm going to like them even more, I'm guessing. But until then, I still enjoyed the movie, even if I didn't really know what they were talking about most of the time. Next up is Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. And I enjoyed this. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did Knives Out. I thought it was a bit too on the nose, and I could see the twist coming a mile away. But overall, it was well made, and I'm looking forward to the next installment in the series. It was okay. It was what I expected it to be, and it was enjoyable nonetheless. My last honorable mention is one that almost squeaked its way into the top 10. It's Bullet Train with Brad Pitt. This was a non-stop energy thrill ride that had me laughing and excited by the action. And while it didn't stick with me too much, I know if I popped it in today, I would enjoy it just as much as I did in the theater. That's why it's my last honorable mention before we get into that top 10. Starting off at number 10 on my top 10 movies of 2022, it's Baz Luhrmann's film, Elvis. And upon initially watching Elvis, the first hour of it, I didn't like it all. It felt rushed, it felt surface level, but that second half really sold it for me. It hit the emotional points I wanted it to, and the music in it was absolutely great as well. And overall, it's not my favorite movie of the year. That's obviously because it's at number 10, but I did enjoy it, and the lead performance by Austin Butler I think is Oscar worthy, although I hope Brendan Fraser wins it for The Whale. But overall, good movie, and I plan to watch it again at some point. Coming at number 9 is a bit of a controversial pick because Harry Styles is in some hot water right now, but it's Don't Worry, Darling. While this movie was immersed in a lot of drama, a lot of people were pissed off and didn't go and see this, I think it was okay. And while the ending was a bit wishy-washy for me, I did enjoy the ride there. It had a few great performances, including a standout role from Florence Pugh, and overall, I enjoyed it for what it was. Sue me. Coming in at number 8 is one that's going to surprise a couple people because for a lot of people, it's their first or second on their list. It's Top Gun: Maverick. I'm not a huge action movie fan, but this movie blew me away. I think it's miles better than the original film, and this was one of my favorite experiences I had in the movie theater in 2022. It looks absolutely beautiful, and while the story's been done a ton of times, it's basically Star Wars, A New Hope, it's really good. It's a solid movie, and I know someday I'll watch it again, especially if there's a sequel, and it really revived movie theaters, and I appreciate it for that. Coming at number 7, it's Gladiator with a ton of more balls. It's The Northman. The Northman was absolutely brutal. I enjoyed this theater experience and hearing people gasp at the gratuitous violence. And overall, I enjoyed it. It's a tale I've seen before, but it's done in such a unique way that I want to watch it again. It looks absolutely breathtaking on the physical media format as well. That's why I made my top 10 on that list. And I think I will be returning to this movie, and I'm excited for what comes next in this director's filmography. My number 6 entry was a bit of a disappointment, but it still made my top 10 because I enjoyed it for what it was. It's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I think it was the best Marvel movie to come out last year. Sorry, Black Panther. I enjoyed Doctor Strange more. And while I was disappointed by the lack of cameos that it was kind of sold on, or at least rumored to be revolving around, I had fun with it. It's one of the most intense Marvel movies that's around. Sam Raimi really put his mark on this film. And I think that the film, while disappointing, I think it's okay. It serves the franchise well, and I think I'll return to it at some point. Coming in at number 5 is a movie that I have not seen on many people's lists whatsoever. It's Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans in Netflix's The Gray Man. I am a Ryan Gosling stan, so the fact that this isn't at number 1 is telling, but this is just a fun Jason Bourne, James Bond style action romp. And seeing Ryan Gosling in this role, pretty much the first of its kind for him, I was engaged with it. He's got charisma for days, and if they keep pumping these out on Netflix, I'll go and see them. Luckily, I was able to see it in an actual movie theater, and that added to the experience. I watched it at home too, and that was okay, but this is a type of movie you need to see on a big screen with a bucket full of popcorn in your lap. I'm glad I was able to do that, and I enjoyed The Gray Man immensely, so much so I had to hunt down a bootleg Blu-ray copy so I could put it on my shelf. Sue me. And do you remember that film I mentioned that was the last one I watched just a couple of days ago, and it made my top 5? Well, here it is. Number 4 is The Menu. The Menu surprised me. I could have seen it a ton of times in theaters, but I skipped it for whatever reason. I thought, oh, it's about like a chef, and it's kind of a horror movie, kind of a thriller. I thought, I'll just skip it. But it kept gnawing at me, and it was on my to-watch list. And when it finally hit HBO Max, I put it on, and I was like, holy shit, there's a few moments in there that really had me turning my head. I'm going to remember this movie for quite a long time, so much so I bought it on Blu-ray the very next day, and I plan to rewatch it in the next week or two. The Menu is surprising, it's darkly funny at times, and it was really telling, and it talks a lot about how we are as a society, and what we value, and what we give up in order to achieve fame and wealth, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I'd recommend you go out and see it. Number 3 is a better version of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, so much so that it's getting a ton of award attention. It is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. When I watched it in movie theaters initially, it didn't have all the buzz that it has right now. It was in a pretty limited release, and I thought it was super quirky, and that's what I think is staying with people. It's one of the most original films that came out in the past year, and it has a lot of heart. I was fighting tears by the end of it, and while I didn't love it as much as everyone else seems to love it, I do enjoy it, I do own it, and I plan to return to it at some point and directly compare it with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because Marvel should be taking notes here. The number 2 film on my top 10 movies of 2022 list is a film that had me crying actual tears in a public space in a movie theater, and not even as much as the woman who was bawling by the credits. That is Brendan Fraser's return in The Whale. The Whale absolutely took me away. And while it is a bit of emotional porn where they know exactly what they're doing, the score knows exactly what it's doing, the dialogue knows exactly what it's doing, and what it's doing is connecting you to a really heartfelt tale, and it's set mostly in one room. And that is really captivating for me. Brendan Fraser delivers an Oscar-worthy performance, and I'm going to be returning to The Whale. I got to show it to people, show its emotional impact. It's got a lot to say, and I won't spoil it for you, but Sadie Sink's performance is fantastic in this film as well. It's one I highly recommend, but make sure you bring Kleenex and some ice cream because you're going to be shedding some tears. So we're finally to the number 1 spot on my top 10 movies of 2022 list. And for anybody who knows me, you'll know that I'm a big nerd. I love my comic book heroes. I love a nice, dark superhero tale. That's why number 1 on my list is The Batman. I was skeptical of Robert Pattinson in this role. I didn't know if Mr. Twilight was going to be able to pull it off, but holy shit, It really did. This movie's a mixture of The Dark Knight and Seven, and it's a dark take on Gotham, my favorite take on Gotham City that's ever come to the major motion picture screen. And overall, this movie's it's just great. I don't know what to tell you. It's got mood for days and an amazing soundtrack, and the best use of a Nirvana song in a movie since Pan, when they use Smells Like Teen Spirit. Does anyone remember that meme of a movie? I certainly do. But overall, The Batman, it's my favorite movie of last year. It sticks with me. It's the one I've watched the most since seeing it in the theaters, and I plan to watch it many, many times over the years, and I'm happy to see Robert Pattinson in the role. He's doing a great job, and he made the best movie of 2022, in my opinion. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw here, you can check us out on Facebook or Instagram, and like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. My name is Parker Reed. You've been watching PR Media. Keep supporting physical media, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.